Hi everyone, welcome to the show. Today's guest is Lance Beauregard Hartley Roberts, who is a commodities analyst. He spent his early career in Australia's Special Forces and RAF intelligence networks before becoming a go-to expert on Noble and Platinum group metals. Thank you for joining, sir. Excited to talk to you.
Thank you, Danny. Cheers.
Absolutely. Well, I'll let you give a more proper background to understand a little bit more about where you come from and what you do.
Sure. I was born in Colorado in '79. My father was a US citizen. My mother was an Australian citizen living abroad at the time. We moved, my family moved back to Australia only when I was young. I was 2 years old, and attended school in New South Wales, moved to Queensland. I left high school early to pursue a watchmaking apprenticeship. During that time, I applied for the Royal Australian Air Force as a air surveillance operator, which I guess is within their intelligence corps. I was successful in that, so I only completed about three quarters of the watchmaking apprenticeship. Spent 6 years in the Air Force. I transferred to the Army. At the time, it was 4 Battalion Royal Australian Regiment, which were commandos. They're now known as 2 Commando. In that time, during training in the acceptance phase, I had a severe injury to my right foot. It was crushed by a Mercedes Benz Unimog truck, which is a large vehicle usually used to haul equipment or people. And that subsequently led to my medical discharge in the military. When I left the military, which was '05, I had about a year's hiatus from really doing anything, uh, and then got into precious metals. I invested heavily in gold and silver, but there were a few exotic metals that really caught my attention. One specifically was palladium, which is a platinum group metal, and it's probably mostly used in catalytic converters because of its ability to absorb hydrocarbons. I guess, for lack of better explanation, it basically cleans the exhaust of internal combustion engine. What I found really unique about palladium was its ability to absorb 900 times its volume of hydrogen gas at room temperature. So early on, uh, I guess, naturally conceived the idea that it would be an excellent metal to be used as a way to safely transport hydrogen gas from one place to another, simply because hydrogen is such a volatile gas. And when I invested in palladium, I believe it was $280 US an ounce, and it accelerated all the way up to 4,500 US dollars an ounce. Likewise, in that time, simply because of the GFC and rapid inflation, silver and gold, they also increased in multiples that were very similar. And other metals, I invested in rhodium, which went from 1,000 to about $10,000 an ounce. And recently, I've been investing in ruthenium. It has a very high melting and boiling temperature. I've theorized it has high conductivity, so I've theorized its potential use within circuitry. It's probably I could see an area of use specifically in, say, circuitry within rockets that would undergo intense temperatures with any type of entry or re-entry into our atmosphere. So they're a few of the metals that I've looked at, and I've also been sort of experimenting with silicon dioxide, which essentially is just like quartz, and its application in protective coatings. I've sort of developed, loosely developed some protective coatings that can be applied to vehicles, leather goods, and uh, also as a protective measure for high-end watches, which I'm thoroughly enamored with. Really love Rolexes, so I don't know. Apologies for jumping around a bit, but I've been restoring vintage Rolexes for a number of years, and managed to sell quite a few on eBay from parts that I had collected over the years.
Hmm. So,
So
is it fair to say that you made a living by basically researching and investing into precious metals?
yeah, I when I left the Defence Force in Australia, we have a ability to have our own what's called self-managed superannuation fund, which is I believe it's called a 401k in the United States, which plans for an individual's retirement when they reach compulsory retirement age. So when I left the Defence Force, there was a component of those funds which was accessible to an individual to invest themselves. And I dove headfirst into precious metals, which went quite well. Essentially, it ran pace with the same multiple of appreciation that real estate achieved over that same period of time.
So it's this is what you do day to day, basically doing research, continuing to invest into the metals. Is there anything else that comes into play? Do you have some people who work with you? Do you have a team? Are you trying to scale the business model that you have, or uh, how does it work under the hood?
So, specifically with my precious metals, it's been solely revolved around investing for my family's future retirement, and to leave a legacy to. I have one 25-year-old son, so it would be a matter of planning for the future. The a very lucrative aspect of my investing, which just was a matter of happenstance, was the fact that Rolex wristwatches went up immensely in value over the last 10 years, and I happen to be sitting on a number of vintage Rolex parts from earlier on, and I combined those with um, uh, watches that required repair, um, and made use of those parts and married both together and sat on a small fortune in valuable watches.
Got it, got it. Is
But
there?
sorry,
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
sorry to answer your question. I don't have any individuals that work with me. Um, in regards to a plan of upscaling, um, that would be something I'd be looking for in regards to this protective coating, which I've uh, successfully developed.
Got it. Um, Is there an insight or something that you want to share with the public, something from this industry, metals investing or watches, that people don't understand? Maybe there is an opportunity that people miss that you saw, that you'd like to share with the public.
I think, well, collectively, we're going through a period of uh, great inflation right now. It's no mystery to anyone that money printing is accelerating, and that's resulting in an increase in commodity prices, goods and services. Unfortunately, wage growth isn't following the those increase in prices, so it makes it difficult for an individual to stay ahead of the curve. So really, the only way that an individual can access that when their wage isn't growing is by investing. And I particularly targeted precious metals as opposed to property because of their cheap holding cost, their ease of portability, their liquidity. They're easily tradable in any capital city, any place over the world. Within Australia, the specific metals, gold, silver, and platinum, are free from what we have a tax over here called goods and services tax. Those particular metals are free from that 10% tax. So all those are added incentives as to why those particular precious metals are a good investment vehicle, as opposed to, I guess, the other alternative, which was property development, property investment. The only disadvantage that the precious metals had in comparison to property investment was the ability to be able to leverage your investment by putting, in most cases, a 10% deposit down on a property and being able to borrow the rest. Whereas in most circumstances, you're unable to do that with a precious metal investment. You're required to put up 100% of the initial cost in the beginning. So your returns can be less competitive as compared to investing in property. And also your ability in property uh, to rent the asset out and have someone else pay it off for you. So they're different factors that you have to take into consideration. But I
Mhm.
mean, when you look at gold, when I first invested in gold, it was 600 Australian an ounce, and it's over 5,000 an ounce now. So they're um, they're very steady returns.
Mhm. And when I was doing my research, I'm not the biggest expert on metals, but maybe you can give a little bit of just explain it in a bit of with more detail. From what I saw, there are a few categories of metals. You have precious metals, you have noble metals, you have platinum group metals. Could you give a little overview on the differences and maybe how it ties to the investing? Maybe some of them are a better choice, or anything that you can share any insights.
I guess I'd start with the two most well-known metals, which are gold and silver. Um, Gold predominantly has less of an industrial use than what silver does, and it's also generally required by most large banks that they hold a base amount of capital within their institution, and each of them are required to have a specific amount of gold. So that straight away creates a global demand and a specific usage for that particular metal, which gives it its inherent value. And in any instance, it's the ratio of supply versus demand for something that creates its inherent value, um, and the possibility for it to either increase or decrease. Now, compared to silver, it doesn't have that stipulation that it be a metal that's required for a bank to store, but it has a vast number of industrial uses compared to gold. Some individuals like to study a specific ratio called the gold silver ratio, which is the price of 1 ounce of gold compared to an ounce of silver. And traditionally, the gold silver ratio has hovered somewhere between 15 to 20 to 1. Right now, the gold silver ratio is about roughly 80 to 1. Silver's considered vastly undervalued when compared to gold, in that silver is still floating around its 2008 2009 high, whereas in 2008 2009 gold was crossing 1,000 an ounce. This is in Australian dollars. It's now sitting over 5,000 an ounce, whereas silver at that time was peaking at $49 Australian an ounce, and it's only just recently crossed $50 an ounce. Taking into consideration the fact that the gold silver ratio is at 80 to 1, and traditionally it's been at that range of 15 to 20 to 1, there's a considerable range of movement for silver to increase considerably in value. In regards to the other metals that you mentioned, specifically, say for instance, platinum, that's for a long time held a significant usage within globally within catalytic converters, where it's been required by a lot of automotive manufacturers to have strict emissions. Uh, they have strict emission control regulations, so they're required to increasingly use more and more of the platinum group metals, which are made up of platinum, rhodium, and palladium, depending on the type of vehicle, whether or not it's a diesel or a uh, petrol internal combustion engine, will relate to whether or not palladium or platinum is used within that catalytic system. With the advent and the likely demise of the internal combustion engine, there was, with proper foresight, obviously, there's going to be little to no need or requirement for those platinum group metals, so their prices tumbled, and platinum, which for the longest time was generally over 2 times the price of gold, slipped to a third and less than the price of gold. But recently, many people would have seen that some nations have turned their stance as to whether they will indeed ban the sale of internal combustion engines in the future in favour of all electrified vehicles. So that warrants the thought whether or not the platinum group metals, if their day is indeed done, and if there's still going to be the required usage for them in the future. But there's a lot of innovative uh, needs that are becoming realised, specifically for palladium, and the one I mentioned before, also ruthenium in the future. So there's plenty of room for the value of those metals to increase.
Mhm. And you obviously know a lot of about metals and everything around it, investing and so on. How do you do your research? Do you have any advice that you can share for the people who want to follow your path or do something similar? Maybe not exactly in this field, but in general, how do you do research efficiently?
Um, it's whether or not this specific method is considered efficient is really tailored to the individual. But I, uh, as much as I research in regards to chart patterns, the prospective demand of the metal in regards to the specific industry that it's currently used in, or any future industries that it will be potentially used in, I trade a lot on instinct. Started to um, notice um, successful trades were emerging from instinctual trading. So that's something that I'm uh, I would it would take a while to be able to um, explain how I do that, and something that I wouldn't prescribe for another individual. From a something that's can be scholastically replicated, I rely heavily on chart patterns. It definitely seems to be that the past is a signal for the future. There seems to be inherent patterns all through nature which replicate themselves, and financial markets are no different. And um, patterns in human behavior directly mirror patterns within the financial market, purely because it's human behavior that drives those movements within those very markets. Patterns of human behavior in regards to fear and greed are more than evident in the dot com bubble of '99, prior to the 2008 2009 GFC, and then also one that I think that did catch everyone off guard was how the COVID crisis really drove prices up as opposed to collapsing them, which uh, the inverse, at least at the time I predicted, would have taken place.
Mhm. Well, sir, appreciate you sharing your story, your lessons and insights today. Uh, Super excited to have talked to you, and yeah, a great conversation.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that very much, Danny.
Thank you.